The journey back to New Drakmore Station proved to be one of the most delicate operations in Commander Zix Thara's long career. The hatchlings had awakened during the transfer to the rescue shuttle, but instead of being frightened by the change in environment, they had simply looked around with curious eyes before settling back against Marcus Webb's chest as if nothing unusual had happened. Dr. Chen spent the entire flight monitoring the hatchlings' vital signs and taking detailed notes on their behavior. What she observed challenged decades of established xenobiological understanding. The young dragons showed no signs of stress or anxiety despite being moved from their makeshift nest. Instead, they remained calm and content as long as they maintained physical contact with Webb. "This is unprecedented," she murmured into her recorder as she watched the smallest hatchling, the silver-scaled female, wrap her tiny claws around Webb's finger. The level of interspecies bonding demonstrated here suggests that dragon hatchlings may be far more adaptable and socially complex than we previously understood. Webb, meanwhile, sat quietly in the medical bay, gently stroking the sleeping hatchlings while answering Zix Thara's careful questions. Despite facing potential criminal charges for his actions, he showed no regret about his choices. "I'd do it again," he said, when asked directly about his decision to take the hatchlings. "These little ones needed help, and I was the only one willing to give it to them. Sometimes doing the right thing means breaking the rules." As the rescue shuttle approached New Drakmore Station, Zix Thara felt a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. The next few hours would determine not just Webb's fate, but potentially the future of human-dragon relations. The discovery that dragon hatchlings could form such profound bonds with humans was revolutionary, but it also raised uncomfortable questions about traditional dragon child-rearing practices. The docking bay was crowded with personnel when they arrived. Ambassador Kethmora and Thorikvan waited at the front of the group, their massive forms trembling with barely contained emotion. Behind them stood Administrator Chen, several high-ranking diplomats from both species, and what appeared to be half the station's medical staff. The moment the shuttle's doors opened and Kethmora saw her children safe and sound in Webb's arms, she let out a cry that was part relief, part joy, and part something else that defied translation. She rushed forward, her maternal instincts overriding all diplomatic protocols, only to stop short when she realized the hatchlings were still sleeping peacefully against the human's chest. "My babies," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Are they all right? Are they hurt?" Dr. Chen stepped forward with her medical scanner and data pad. "Ambassador, I'm happy to report that your children are in perfect health, better than perfect, actually. Their vital signs indicate that they've been receiving excellent care. They're well-fed, properly hydrated, and their stress hormone levels are lower than we typically see in nursery-raised hatchlings." Thorikvan moved closer, his golden eyes fixed on his sleeping offspring. "But why do they not wake? Why do they not come to us?" "They've been sleeping almost constantly for the past day," Webb explained softly. "I think they were exhausted from all the crying before. Their bodies are just catching up on the rest they needed." As if summoned by their father's voice, the blue-scaled hatchling opened his eyes and looked around the docking bay. For a moment, everyone held their breath, waiting to see how the young one would react to finding himself surrounded by so many large dragons. But instead of fear or excitement, the hatchling simply yawned, chirped softly at his parents, and nestled back against Webb's shoulder. Kethmora's expression was a complex mixture of gratitude, confusion, and something that might have been hurt. "I don't understand," she said. "We are their parents. Why do they not wish to come to us?" It was Dr. Chen who provided the answer, her voice gentle but filled with scientific fascination. "Ambassador, I believe what we're witnessing is an imprinting phenomenon that we didn't know was possible in dragon development. Your children haven't rejected you, but they've formed a powerful bond with Mr. Webb that serves as their primary source of comfort and security. Imprinting. Veltar stepped forward, his security training making him approach the situation analytically. Are you suggesting that these hatchlings have imprinted on a human instead of their own species? It's more complex than that, Dr. Chen replied, consulting her data pad. Based on my observations and the medical data, I believe the hatchlings were experiencing a form of developmental distress in the nursery environment. When Mr. Webb provided the physical contact and emotional reassurance they needed, they formed what we might call a therapeutic bond. It doesn't replace their connection to their parents, but it does fulfill a specific need for comfort and security. Administrator Chen moved closer to the group, her expression serious. Dr. Chen, what are the implications of this discovery? Are you saying that our current nursery practices might be inadequate? I'm saying that this situation suggests dragon hatchlings may have social and emotional needs that we haven't fully understood. The traditional isolation methods used in dragon nurseries might actually be causing developmental stress rather than promoting independence. The gathering fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. If Dr. Chen was right, it meant that generations of dragon young had been raised in environments that caused them unnecessary distress. The potential ramifications for dragon society were staggering. Ambassador Kethmora looked at Webb with new eyes, her expression shifting from confusion to something approaching awe. You mean to tell me that this human recognized needs in my children that our own experts missed? With respect, Ambassador, Webb said carefully, I think any parent would have recognized what I saw. Your children weren't just crying, they were grieving. They needed comfort, and somehow, they found it with me. I don't pretend to understand why, but I couldn't ignore what was right in front of me. Thorikvan rumbled deep in his chest, a sound that could have been agreement or contemplation. In our ancient past, before we developed our current practices, dragon families raised their young together, with constant physical contact and emotional bonding. Perhaps this human has reminded us of something we forgot in our quest for efficiency and independence. The conversation was interrupted by a soft, chirping sound. The gold-scaled hatchling had awakened and was looking around the docking bay with bright, curious eyes. When she spotted her mother, she made a happy trill and reached out with her tiny claws. Webb carefully lifted the little one and held her toward Kethmora. For a moment, the hatchling hesitated, looking back at Webb as if seeking reassurance. He nodded and whispered something too soft for the others to hear, and the hatchling allowed herself to be transferred to her mother's arms. Kethmora held her daughter close, tears streaming down her scaled cheeks. The little one snuggled against her mother's chest, chirping contentedly, but her eyes remained fixed on Webb, as if maintaining that vital connection. This is remarkable, breathed one of the dragon diplomats who had been observing silently. The hatchling has accepted transfer to her mother, but she's still bonded to the human. It's as if she considers them both part of her family unit. Over the next several hours, a series of careful experiments were conducted under Dr. Chen's supervision. The hatchlings were gradually reintroduced to their parents, but always with Webb present to provide reassurance. The results were extraordinary. When Webb was nearby, the young dragons were calm, playful, and responsive to their parents. When he was removed from their sight, they became distressed and began the same heartbroken crying that had started the entire situation. It's not that they don't love their parents, Dr. Chen explained to the assembled group of officials. They clearly do. But Mr. Webb has become their primary attachment figure, their source of security in an uncertain world. Remove that security, and they revert to distress behaviors. The implications were profound, and the debate that followed stretched long into the station's night cycle. Legal experts argued about Webb's unauthorized access to the nursery. Diplomatic representatives worried about the precedent this might set for human-dragon interactions. medical professionals debated the long-term effects of interspecies bonding on hatchling development. But it was Ambassador Kethmora who finally cut through all the debate with a simple statement that would be remembered for generations. "My children are happy," she said, looking around the conference room at all the assembled experts and officials. "For the first time since they hatched, they are truly content. This human risked everything to provide them with care that we, their own people, failed to give them. How can we punish such compassion?" Thorikvan nodded gravely. "Marcus Webb committed a crime according to our laws, but he committed that crime to save our children from suffering. In dragon culture, such actions are not punished but honored." The final resolution came in the form of an unprecedented agreement between human and dragon authorities. Webb would face no criminal charges for his actions, but he would be required to work with dragon child development specialists to understand and document the bonding phenomenon he had discovered. More importantly, he would be asked to serve as a consultant in developing new nursery practices that incorporated the lessons learned from his experience with the hatchlings. "We're talking about fundamentally changing how we raise our young," Veltar said during one of the planning sessions. "This human has shown us that our children need more than just physical care. They need emotional connection, physical comfort, and the security of close bonding." Webb, who had been sitting quietly while his fate was decided, finally spoke up. "I don't want to change your entire culture. I just wanted to help 3 little ones who were hurting. But if what I did can help other hatchlings in the future, then I'm glad something good came from all this." The agreement also included a provision that Webb would continue to serve as a caregiver for Kethmora's hatchlings until they were old enough to transition to independence gradually. A special apartment was established on the station where the hatchlings could live with their parents while maintaining regular contact with Webb. Dr. Chen's research into the bonding phenomenon became the foundation for a revolution in dragon child rearing practices. Nurseries throughout the Draconic sovereignty began implementing contact comfort protocols, and the results were immediate and dramatic. Hatchling mortality rates dropped, developmental milestones were reached earlier, and the overall emotional health of young dragons improved measurably. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the two species viewed each other. The discovery that a human could not only understand dragon emotional needs, but could fulfill them better than dragons themselves, challenged fundamental assumptions about interspecies relationships. This human saw our children not as alien creatures to be studied or managed, but as individuals deserving of love and comfort, Ambassador Kethmora said in her address to the Draconic Council months later. He risked everything to provide that love, asking nothing in return. If this is what humans are capable of, then we have much to learn from them. The story of Marcus Webb and the 3 hatchlings became legend throughout both human and dragon space. Children of both species grew up hearing about the human who taught dragons how to love their young, and the dragon hatchlings who showed that family bonds could transcend the boundaries of species. Years later, when the 3 hatchlings had grown into healthy, confident young dragons, they would still visit Webb regularly. They would curl up with him just as they had in that makeshift nest in the asteroid field, proving that some bonds are strong enough to last a lifetime. And in nurseries throughout the galaxy, human caregivers worked alongside dragon parents to raise the next generation, ensuring that no hatchling would ever again have to cry alone in the darkness, unheard and uncomforted. The universe, it seemed, was a little warmer for one human's simple act of compassion.